Well, hello again, Ms. Saylouse. How are you?
Well, hello. Another Married to Real Estate podcast.
We are married to real estate, aren't we?
Yes.
Just can't get away with it.
Can't get away from each other.
Yeah.
Partners and partners.
There we go. Yeah. That cracks people up when we...
Yes. Yes, it does.
I think they assume it, but then we throw it at them.
Right. And then they don't want to assume, are you married? Are you together? Just on the same team?
Brother, sister? No. So, you want to buy a house?
I would love to buy a house.
You want to sell a house?
Correct.
Somebody needs to know what the value of that home is, don't they?
Yes, they do.
So they do this thing called an appraisal.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because whether you are a buyer or a seller, one of the major pieces of a transaction is the appraiser. The appraiser, the person, and the appraisal, the result. And so that's what we were just going to discuss today. So let's just go over the quick home buying process. So today we just want to talk about when you purchase a home, and we're talking about the most, frequent transaction that we have is that a buyer comes in, they want to buy a home, they're getting a loan. That's the most frequent that we deal with. So when that happens and they're getting a loan from the bank wants to make sure that that property will appraise, basically meet the value, because they want to make sure, they're putting up the money to fund this purchase, and they want to make sure that the house is worth what everybody is thinking that it's worth. So we'll give an example of a house that's for sale for $500,000. And so the confusion lies in, usually a contract comes in and the seller was like, or we're talking about this prior to, the seller often doesn't know, well, who pays for the appraiser to come, what's in the report, how does it go about, how do they go about doing this? And we're just talking about like a conventional loan.
Sure.
So with the appraisal, the buyers are like, well, hey, I want to buy the house for $500,000, and let's just do that. I'm putting down 10%, and even if it comes in lower, what happens? And so, can you give us an example for when we have a home that the appraiser comes in, and as we often tell our clients, you can have 5 different appraisals and you can have 5 different values. And usually, a seller's like, well, why? How can that happen? Yes.
One of our favorite lines.
Yeah.
It's an art, not a science.
That's right. And so that's where a lot of confusion comes with sellers. And they're like, well, I don't understand, because there's not a set value. Is I have a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house. It's not $10,000 for one bathroom, $10,000 for another, $5,000 for the half bath. It just doesn't work like that. There are, what do we like to say? It's merely a guideline.
Yeah.
And that's where, there can be very, very different opinions between appraisers. And sometimes deals do fall apart because there is just, you have a seller that wants to sell, you have a buyer that wants to buy, and then an appraiser comes in to evaluate the property for the bank, and it just doesn't match up with the expectations of the seller and the buyer. And in that circumstance, what happens? Either the deal completely falls apart, or if you have excellent real estate agents on either side.
And I knew where you were going. I was right there. The best real estate agent in the world could come in and save the day.
Excellent. On either side.
Right.
Well, thank you. All right. Enough about us. No. But really what happens is you really need some true professionals working on both sides, because a strong listing agent isn't just going to put a price on a property that they don't think can appraise, because you're not doing your client any good, because you would run into this issue. And a strong buyer's agent isn't going to write a contract for a property that they don't think will appraise for that much either. And so everyone's trying to get to the finish line, and how do we make that work? And sometimes you actually need to use a different lender and protest the appraisal by saying, hey, here are the comps that we used to price this property. And the buyer, same thing. And usually at that point, we're all trying we're working together to reach that price. And, and many times it does work, because what happens in the event of a low appraisal is that the seller either will drop their price, the buyer will make up the difference because they have to come to the table with extra cash. So in our example here, if the house was for sale for $500,000, buyers wrote for $500,000, everybody's happy. The appraiser comes in and evaluates it, and it comes in at $490,000. So we have a $10,000 gap. So either the seller's going to drop the $490,000, the buyer's going to come up to $500,000, so they have to bring in an extra $10,000 cash, because the lender will only loan on that lower amount. They're either going to loan on the sales price or the appraisal value, the lower of the two.
Correct.
In most circumstances, we usually find some sort of a happy medium in the middle. $4.95 or, somewhere where everybody does a concession. Or in a worst case scenario, we have to actually go back and protest the appraisal, get a new appraisal done. In a very extreme circumstance, you have to get a whole nother lender to come in and do the loan because of certain rules. But it just kind of goes back to, that appraisal is a critical pivot point for the home buying process.
Yeah, and it's so pivotal.
Pivotable. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it could be a word.
And
It's an integral part.
last on our English class, and I
SAT
really
vocabulary.
did. But it's so integral. No, I'm not even sure. Anyway, so when we go talk to our sellers, we always say there's 3 opinions of price, right? There's going to be the seller's opinion of price, the buyer's opinion of price, and the appraiser's opinion of price. And the one that matters the most is the third, the appraiser's opinion of that price, which is why when we talk about, sales price, market value, we want to come at it with that appraiser's number.
Right.
The best we can.
Correct.
Right.
Right. And we want, to really hone in on that market price. And at the same when we're representing buyers, we're saying, hey, this is what this home should appraise for based on, and we also have to remember that appraisals and bank appraisals, they are only historical. So if you've got a wildly swinging market one way or the other, the bank is looking at property values and market trends, but it truly is, as soon as something sells, that becomes a data point.
Sure.
And that is what the bank wants. So it doesn't matter if properties are active on the market or even under contract. They only want to see that sold data.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, it is. And for the bank.
For the bank.
So it is always a little bit, it can be contentious when appraisals go awry. We like to see, now that we are quite experienced, we don't get older, we just get more experienced.
Sure.
That it just, we've seen many things and we've gotten through many of them. And we bring that experience to our clients, both buyers and sellers, to get through that appraisal process.
It truly is something that experience helps.
Right.
There's no two ways about it.
Right. So the key is the buyers pay for that appraisal in the process. The sellers don't pay for the appraisal. And, the house does need to ideally appraise for that sales price because there will be some concessions that have to be made if it doesn't. And again, you just want to make sure you're working with a professional on both sides, somebody who can make sure that you are, number one, not overpaying for a property as a buyer, and as a seller, that you're pricing it right so that you don't run into appraisal issues down the road.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's our little, appraisals one-on-one for today. 101. My goodness, I'm tripping over all my words today.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, so we'll wrap that up. And yes, so please, if you have any questions, please contact us at sablehouseteam.com. You might not be able to spell it, but if just do it phonetically and you'll find us on Google. All right, Mr. Sablehouse and my last name.
Thank you, Ms. Silva.
Have a great day.
Bye.